Ready for my next trick?
All right. I am here with Kunahan Thampi. He is the director of probably one of the most underrated films of 2025, which I got to see a few months ago. It's definitely underrated. I actually enjoyed it. It's called Fairest of Them All. And it is about is I call it the fairy tale princess death match because that's what it basically is about. In this film, the Mad Hatter kidnaps fairy tale princesses and puts them in a death match to see who is the fairest of them all. And Kunahan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it.
Thank you so much for having me, Albert. It's my pleasure. It was a great journey making that film. I truly enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm so glad we get to speak about it.
Yeah, my first question is, how did you get the directing part on this? Where did it all start?
I was fortunate enough to work with Renee, the producer on the film, on some previous features that she was associated with teams like Jagged Edge and Champ Dog. And working with them as an assistant director for a while, I finally moved a step up into directing one of their own features. So it was just a natural step up, I feel, after having worked as an assistant director for almost 6 months for them.
That's awesome. And my question is, how was it your idea to come up with to direct Fairest of Them All, or did they pitch this one to you? Said, this could be the one you can start directing. Where did
they pitched this to me, and I said, "How could you say no to this? It's such an insane idea of like having this death match with six iconic characters controlled by another iconic character. The opportunity to have such a range of things to direct and play around with this one script. It was impossible to say no, honestly."
That's awesome. I gotta tell you though, one thing I loved was the cast. And when I first saw the movie, I was so surprised because I have been pumping up Louis Santer this year, ever since seeing him as Tigger in Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2, then seeing him in Mouse of Horrors where he played the mouse. Now here he is as the Mad Hatter. And I'm like, where did this guy come from? And why has he not pop up in anything sooner? Because he brings this charm, even though he's a crazy lunatic, the characters that he played, but he's got this charm that he brings to the roles. And here he does it so well with the Mad Hatter. And I got to ask, man, what was it like working with Louis?
Honestly, Louis is one of the nicest people ever. He's such a wonderful person, and he's such a versatile actor. He is genuine, he is warm, he takes direction so easily without fighting you, by just contributing constantly to the character and ensuring that he's doing his best to make it his own version, but also something that's collaborative. And it was such a pleasure to work with him. I think the best part was that characters like this that are so loud and exaggerated with extremely long monologues can tend to get a bit boring to watch after a while. It's a bit of a stress where you're like, okay, now he's going to go on a rant again and talk about his evil sort of plan. But with Lewis, you didn't feel that boredom. He kept it new and fresh with each take. Every time he had to go through some sense of like the dialogues, we would break it down to understand his intention, and he nailed it each time. So no complaints. Honestly, one of the best experiences with any actor I've ever had.
Yeah,
And
and I
so was the
also
rest of the cast, honestly.
yeah, definitely. And one thing that surprised me was I feel like this was kind of like a semi sequel to Cinderella's Curse
Hmm.
because Kelly returned as Cinderella and she still has that curse under her belt. Did you work on Cinderella's Curse as like on the crew on that film at all?
I
Or
was first AD on the second unit of the shooting of that film. I was fortunate enough to work with Louisa Warren, the director of that, who honestly just has did such a wonderful thing with Cinderella, where she made it so epic and fierce and bold, and even with everything that was big as a crew, everything that was like going wrong in terms of the nature working against us, she managed to pull through and direct such an epic film, honestly. And
she did.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just great having to see that and like hopefully done a little bit of justice to her work with this semi sequel that it is. It isn't Cinderella's story by herself, so you
Right.
can't call it a Cinderella 2, right? It is an iconic character that we empathize with, that we know leading the film, but you could have backstories for any of these characters and make it into wonderful films themselves.
Yeah, and that's what I like that you did with the film. You get to understand a bit of before the matches or the fights. We get a backstory on some of the characters, and
Yeah.
I am rallying for this right now. I think Natasha Tosini needs to get her own spinoff as Belle. and call it Beauty
Absolutely.
is the Beast because I loved how that came about. And I had a hunch where they showed that flashback and then realizing that, oh my God, Belle is the Beast in this one. I'm like, they need to do a spinoff with that character. It will be so perfect.
I agree. Let's push it with ITN that hey, let's get Natasha into that scary mask. Let's show the beast side of her. Let's show that angry side that she has on the inside. And she's so good with stunts. She puts in everything. Honestly, like with all the fights, I think she would bruise herself just to make sure she get the right take. And we're like, no, you don't have to do that, Natasha. You don't have to dedicate it so much. But she's committed to it. And again, it was just great seeing that contrast and that juxtaposition that she can bring between the innocent, sweet sort of beauty, and then even as when she's playing Belle, she has that sense of sinister in her, where that comes out really well too. So it was cool. Yeah, she's amazing. Let's push for this.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the rest of the cast was great too. I mean, you got Alina playing Alice, and I like the fact that Alice is so conflicted here. Like, you can see she's obviously like a slave to the Mad Hatter, and she wants to find a way out. And I like that, like, because she doesn't really compete in the matches themselves, but you could tell like she's against it, and but she's like she has to stay loyal to them at the same time,
Yeah.
as well as the other characters, Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty scared the crap out of me, and considering who played her in Cinderella's Curse, I'm like, well, why am I really surprised at this point? But but I think they did such a great job
Honestly.
altogether with in terms of the cast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think each member of like each of the princesses were cast so perfectly in accordance to the sort of princess they were playing. And so to give them each the sort of innocent, that Snow White being the innocent but demonic princess, and Daniela playing that so well, just worked perfectly. Kelly being the leader, Cinderella, somebody that could put the forefront of the group. I think again, very perfectly cast too.
So what was it like shooting the action scenes on this in terms of their fights? Did they work with us? Did they put any input in the
Yes.
stunts themselves? Did they have a fight choreographer on set? How did that come about?
So we had our great stunt coordinators, Jessica and Alice. They were with us throughout the entire shoot, and we spoke briefly about the sort of fights and their intention, and the sort of moves that each sort of character would have uh, based on the fights before that. And obviously, given like how short the shooting days are, we would try to dedicate as much time as we could to these fights, and I really insisted on trying to shoot them on gimbals to have that smooth sense of flow and give the actors the room to really perform. So now this meant limited time to rehearse, but a lot of choreography, a lot of movements, which a lot of the actors, I think all the actors picked up on very easily, but they did have to constantly adapt it. So we would go in with a base plan, figure it out. Alice and Jessica would fight it out amongst themselves, suddenly come up with something really ridiculously cool. And they said, okay, you need to calm it down, please. We got very limited time to shoot this. And the actresses would then come in, and then based on a lot to do with the dresses they were wearing,
Yeah.
very, very difficult to fight in those massive gowns with petticoats under and in heels doing the running and kicking. Well, kudos to them, right? But what their costumes allowed them to do would also impact the kind of fight that we had. And we knew that we had to reach certain beats in the fight. And so, based on that, also based on their emotional arcs of the fight, how they were fighting, were things that we would, if we got time, we would tweak and try to adjust also.
So when it came to the characters, did you allow each of the cast members to like interpret their own take on the characters and collaborate with them? And if like they would go one way and they're like, oh, should I do it this? Can I do it this way? Did you get involved with like allow that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had initial meetings, we had breakdowns of the character, we had their motivations and intentions thought out through. We try to figure who is there purely for revenge, who is a chaotic character like Sleeping Beauty, who has a sense of like leadership. So once we understood these base intentions, it was easy for us to get to a similar level. I think it was Natasha who said she doesn't want to play Belle as somebody fragile and innocent. She wants to bring that evil, twisted side, even when she's playing Belle. Like the beast is not just when it gets ugly, the beast is also inside her. And that was a great idea that she contributed. And I said, yeah, we should definitely go with that.
It,
And that's way better than what I was thinking that we would ever go through. So I think a lot of the actors had very fresh ideas that worked, and you got to trust their experience and trust what they're bringing because they've done so many of these horror films. They understand what the audience wants, how to interpret these scripts, and it was great to combine that with an overall image of how of the film that I had.
That's awesome. How long did shooting take, and were there any challenges that you faced during production in terms of maybe time or, something went
Time
wrong?
is time is an issue even before you start. I don't think there's any film that you
Yeah.
don't face the issue of time. But the shooting days was about nine days. But because we were shooting in summer, we had very limited night. We had only 4 hours of night, and obviously in a horror film, you want to try to do all of that. Shooting in summer in the UK is very difficult if you're trying to do a horror film, and so that definitely impacted our schedule. And so we had to try to bring a lot of the scenes and black out the interiors, which again is a time-consuming process. The other bit that consumes a lot of time was itself the makeup and the get-up that it took to make them look as elaborately dressed as they were. That doesn't come easily, and so these kind of like minute challenges definitely like ate up into the overall shooting process. But I don't think we had challenges that set us back because of how great the team is and how experienced it is. I think our DOP Vince Knight is honestly such a master at this. He's calm, composed, constantly knows what to do, how to do it, guiding me and helping me when I'm confused also. So it's just having this sort of support makes helps you not worry about minute inconveniences.
So how does it feel to go from being an assistant director to now taking the helm? Was that a good transit, like a healthy transition, or do you feel like, yeah, I can, this is it's a little difficult, but you have a great, obviously you have a great support team here. Everyone did a great job helping you out. So what was it? What would you say was it a good like how does it like
Yeah,
how
it
do
was
you feel?
honestly, I think it was the perfect transition. It was always the aim and the goal for me to become a director, and I'm just so grateful to having gotten this opportunity to be able to do that with such an interesting film that it felt right. It feels like something that I want to continue doing, and I'd like to help lead projects further on and direct them. And it'd be interesting to see what kind of fun projects come my way, honestly.
So right now you don't have anything
I have
upcoming.
a short film coming out soon. It's going to be done in July, and then you'll hear news about it hopefully mid-August. So
Maybe you can direct if they do get the Bell spinoff, maybe you could direct that. So
I'm going to use this interview to promote that. Yeah, I'm going to record you, and I'm going to make sure they hear this.
all
Thanks,
right.
Albert.
Yeah, 'cause that would be awesome to do. I would love to see the Bell turning to the Beast like a spinoff. That would be so exhilarating to see. Even spin off some of the other, like the Snow White character, but because
Definitely.
that would be really cool too. So yeah, like make it their own little universe, because I know we already have the Twisted Childhood universe with Reese and Scott, but I would like to see. I now seeing Fairest of Them All, I could see this becoming its own little mini cinematic universe. So
Yeah, inshallah. Let's hope. Yeah. Let's go for it.
awesome. Fairest of Them All. You can see it now on Tubi, Amazon, any digital platform, any streaming platform. It is a wild movie. It is the
Thank
fairy
you,
tale
Albert.
princess death match. Kunahan, you did a great job as a first time director, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it.
Thank you so much, Albert. It was such a pleasure speaking to you. Take
Well,
care.
everyone, take care and you stay awesome as
Bye.
always.